Okay, so let's start with a couple of big feature announcements. First one is, especially those organizations who are utilizing Microsoft Teams rooms, there is a new experience that's going to be showing up for MTR for Windows. Just a reminder, there are two different flavors of Microsoft Teams rooms. There's the Windows version and then the Android version. This is for the Windows version, and this kind of aligns to what was announced previously at Ignites. That talks about this new experience to be able to get that those people who are in the conference room and those who are remote to be able to have more interaction. So this idea of being able to have this row down at the bottom where those who are remote are going to sit. And the idea is that it's a new layout that would be available inside that MTR, so that can be chosen. And this can go, one display can go multiple displays. The first iteration really is going to be 4 on the bottom. That should expand eventually, but if I have 2 displays, I'll have 4 on each, right? So I'm able to do that. But it's really about that experience for those people who are in the conference rooms. That just recently came out. Then also, and I'm not sure how many of you guys have been keeping up with this, but Teams breakout room improvements. There is an article that came out, a blog post that came out really about the evolution, so to speak, of what's been happening with Teams breakout rooms. And a breakout room is just something that I can throw onto a webinar or a Teams meeting to be able to have more interaction with a smaller group of people. And so this is really about the new things, the new bells and whistles that are coming out since they originally launched it, right? Things like organizer can be designated that is a breakout room organizer. That's a huge thing. Organizers can also start reassigning people where before you had to close a room before you could reorganize and then reopen it back up. Now you can do it on the fly. You don't have to close that room. If there are any, let's say, for instance, you have a recurring meeting and you want to have the same breakout rooms every single time you're doing that, that is persistent now across your recurring meetings. Just the UI is much better. They made some updates, so it's not on the right-hand panel anymore. There's a dialog box. Countdown timer, you can set that for the rooms, right? But then 60-second countdown will happen in the upper left-hand corner. I know a lot of customers that are like, I wish we could customize it. Yeah, unfortunately, still it's 60 seconds is the matter. At least it's not 10 seconds. And I remember being in a couple breakout rooms myself when all of a sudden, oh, here it comes, 10 seconds, and then we're popped out. So those types of things, just a little bit better user experience. As I mentioned, the breakout room manager role, that's a big one because they can do pretty much anything that a organizer can do, right? So once designated, and first they have to be a presenter, a designated presenter in that meeting. Once you have that, and then you can say, hey, I want Bob to be that breakout room manager. He can go in there, adjust those things beforehand or on the fly during that meeting. Also know if you are in, GCC High, DoD, any of those, that's coming in the future, right? But right now, these are the things that are out for commercial tenants at this point. All right, let's get to the meat and potatoes of what's going on. So these are Message Center. Just kind of keep in mind that these things change all the time. And so accordingly, in this part of the presentation, I'll talk about the big picture ones. We have a section that looks at updated timelines, as well as some admin impact. This fluctuates. I will tell you that there's some times where we get so many updates, and I'm constantly looking at it myself for my, my role in what I do is here, we only have the big ones. There are other ones that are out there, and we try to have some quick hits on those, but even those, we can't catch everything. So keep in mind, there's a lot of changes, especially month to month, that we may not be getting everything, but we're doing a good job trying to get them to big ones. We got one on Yammer this time. This is a big new role that's now, moving over into Azure AD. But the nice thing about this is, I don't know if your organizations have utilized Yammer, but the biggest one was if you assign somebody a Yammer administrator, they had to go through and become a verified admin. That took a little bit of rigmarole, but it was the next additional step. Now, with this added capability within Azure AD, once it gets rolled out, basically it's this thing called a Yammer administrator, and that equals a verified admin. Right, so they don't have to go through those extra steps to be verified. But basically, they can do anything within the Yammer service that we've done in the past. So by adding it and doing it from Azure AD, it's a lot easier. It's easier for us to manage it, especially if that's how I do that from an IT governance perspective. That's where I would do it. All right, Exchange Online update. So in Exchange, we have this thing called URL protection. And there is a report that's being updated. And this is going to give us a little bit more clarification on and capability as far as what do we want to do with that URL as we're protecting it. The idea of URL protection is really when somebody clicks on it, we want to make sure that it's going to the right content. If it's going to bad content, it's not going to unleash, something inside my organization. That's really what it's about. So this report, there's going to be some new click actions that's going to be available. As you notice, it says admin allowed, admin blocked, pending scan, and then admin block and click through. These are categories that you can then see what your end users are doing, in addition to other ones that they already have. The other thing that they're doing is that team is they're kind of merging the reports or the filters so that we have some things that are very similar, right? All grouped together. So as you notice in the screenshot here, you'll see PowerPoint, Word, Excel, OneNote, and Visio are all kind of merged into a new classification called Office, and they're all together at one spot. That's standard end of March to early April, and then all the government mid-April to end of April. Microsoft Bookings, which we had a session in the past about Microsoft Bookings. So what they're doing in the UI, they're doing an update here in February that basically says anything that comes out that's new, we're going to say, hey, this is new. And they call it a new pill is the icon. And then they also have a hover over. If you hover over that pill, you'll get more information about that particular piece. So it's just something that lets, especially those people who are using it, know that, hey, this is a new feature. As you're doing it, they may inquire more about what's going on. Just make sure you notify your users who are using Bookings, and then update your knowledge base. Hey, this is happening. Don't be freaked out. This is what expected. So. Kirk, I will look for that blog post on the breakout room and send that out to this after I get done here.
Yep, I'll take a look as well.
Perfect. Thanks, Michelle. All right, let's move over to SharePoint Online. There's a couple on SharePoint Online, OneDrive, and even Stream is involved with this. So I'm not sure how many of you, from a SharePoint perspective, remember the app catalog. App catalog is where you would manage all of the custom apps or even third-party apps that you purchase and want to deploy and manage out into SharePoint. So it's kind of a change in what they're calling it now. It's basically a managed apps. It's going to be something a little bit different. The experience is going to be similar. I mean, things you can do with this is you can literally buy from the store, SharePoint store, if you want to do that. You can add it to all sites or stop pushing something out to the sites. Add it to a team if the app was developed with teams in mind, right? So if you have internal custom development and they scope it so it's also teams, you can also deploy it to teams. And then if there's any SharePoint store apps that you purchased and they need to get updated, you can do it from there too. So it's similar to the app catalog. And I know, yeah, Beth, you and I remember that working on the app catalog a lot in the past. So this is kind of that new version of the app catalog, and just make sure that you get your governance documentation updated and operational, how you do things updated as well. All right, another SharePoint OneDrive type thing, OneDrive for Business and SharePoint specifically. This one is dealing, and if you remember in a past message center, we talked about being able to do markup on images that are stored in OneDrive or SharePoint. Well, this is the next evolution, right? So now, not only can do those, but now we can crop rotate, adjust, filter, and do that markup that we did before. So you see the screen, the GIFs that are kind of running through there. You can see what you can do. This is happening or already happened, right? It was rolled out. Since we haven't met, since, beginning of January, some of these things have happened in the meantime, but let your users know. I mean, if you haven't put that out there, let them know. They can go in there and they can go ahead and edit that image right there in the browser if they choose to do so. Another OneDrive, SharePoint, and now this time Stream, happening here early February to late February for standard, early March to mid-March for our government. Basically what it is you're able to now add comments to videos or audio files that are stored within SharePoint or on OneDrive. So just like I could do that in a meeting, now I can actually do this, or I should say, similar to what we do with Word, Excel, PowerPoint online, we can throw comments in line inside that document. This is very similar, right? So we are able to go in, and there's going to be a comments button when it's stored in OneDrive or SharePoint that I can go ahead and flip up, and then I can see the comments, the running thread, and then I can also add to it as necessary. Great question, Pete. No, they're not. This is to the document itself. Very kind of different from the Word, Excel, PowerPoint, where, hey, I'm scrolling down, I'm going to do something here. This one is literally that whole file, basically, if you want to think of it that way. There are some PowerShell commands that you can go ahead and limit, because right now viewers can go in and add without that edit permission, right? So there's a lot of stuff that we can't do without edit permissions, transcripts and things like that. But with this, viewers can go in here and put comments in there. If you don't want them to be able to do that, that is a flip the switch type thing, and it's an all or none type scenario, right? You can't just do it for some files versus others. You would have to choose to do that. So good question. Based on this, would the recommendation be that the video be stored in Teams, SharePoint versus placed in Stream? That's a great question. It's also a trick question, Jeremy, because eventually Stream is going to be SharePoint and OneDrive. So you're not necessarily going to have, and this is the kind of long-term trend that we're seeing and hearing, is that the idea of Stream may be very different as it is now to what it's going to be. So yeah, as Beth said, it depends. For now, yes, that would work, because I believe you don't have that capability of doing comments, or you can manage those comments a little bit easier in Stream. So good question.
Yeah, it is a great question, because in thinking about it, basically Stream is going to be becoming a Stream app that you use the Stream app player to watch your SharePoint or your OneDrive for Business videos from.
And the storage is going to be SharePoint and OneDrive. That's going to be the back end, but Stream is going to just be a pass through, depending upon where it's been stored. So again, depends. Thank you, Michelle. All right, Stream, another piece to the pie, on-demand caption and transcript generation. Early April to late April. So basically, if the transcription was never done on that file, or it was uploaded after the fact, maybe some other tool or something like that, then it's going to go through and be able to do this after the fact, right? So generate the script. It's going to first be in English. That's going to change as everything else does, but it's going to then generate the caption, and then you'll have that transcript pane to be able to do things. Whoever has edit rights can be able to delete the caption file. Viewers can enable the playback. They can, view the transcript that was generated by it, but understand, depending upon the length of the video, it may take a while for it to actually go through, run its algorithm, and do that, right? One thing in the message center that I thought was interesting, specifically, was this. Note, not all users will receive this feature at the same time in your tenant. AKA, it's going to be a slow rollout within your tenant, not just between tenant and tenant, right? So keep in mind that may be happening, and that some people may get it and other people may not get it. Not a good user experience, but that's what it is. All right, so we have a lot of organizations. This next one, now we're kind of going to a different area, the Microsoft 365 suite. So we have a lot of organizations that like to connect Office 365 into other systems, other tools that they have. I've been in companies where we've used Jira for a lot of project management, development work, those types of things. I've even had a company that decided they wanted to go Confluence for some things and SharePoint for others. But the idea is if they choose to do that, now there is a connector that allows us to bring that information into SharePoint Online and Office 365, basically, to be able to index and search. So if I have Confluence blog pages, if I have Jira tickets, right, I can actually pull those in and display that information. Somebody is just using Office 365 as their search engine to be able to display that in search results. And you'll see in the example that you have here, you can then set up a Jira content area to be able to say, hey, I want to be able to see just Jira content. Otherwise, it would be mixed with all the other information that you have. Right, this is happening early February to mid, so it's rolling out now. You would have to have those tools there. The administrators would have to be able to set things up. And then there's an AKA down on the bottom here, MS Graph Connect Atlassian, to be able to actually get to some of that information if you're interested in that. All right, going to the next 365 Message Center. This is a change, and I noticed this happen. It's already out for most of you, but go ahead and go into your Message Center and look at any one of those announcements that are coming through. And I want you to notice that there is now going to be the number of monthly active users associated to that particular service. In the example you see here, the first one is Microsoft Teams, 10K, Outlook, 7,200, those types of things. That's telling you how much this is going to affect those people who are utilizing that service, right? So if it's minimum, right? So if I have somebody like we're just literally starting to use Yammer, I may have 50, 60 people on it. Maybe it's not going to be a big deal. As opposed to I have, all 100,000 people using Teams, it may be affecting that. That allows you to be able to determine how I want to best approach either communication or training or combination of both for that particular update that's happening, right? So the other thing to keep in mind, this is not breaking it down by usage, right? It literally is all together, desktop, web, mobile, all together as far as active users, and that's how they're talking about it. Notice the supported workloads: Teams, Exchange, 365 apps, OneDrive, SharePoint, Skype for Business for those people who happen to still be utilizing that, and Yammer. If it's not on that list, you will get this saying usage data currently isn't supported. Eventually, they'll add more services to this capability. But I would invite you to go out there because I'm pretty sure you probably see it already out there if you haven't looked at it yet. Let's jump into Teams. We're going to talk about Teams admin here for a little bit. Apps list and banner, just app management page is getting a revamp, and a couple of things specifically. So normally we'd have our app list and we'd have to search by name. Now what they're doing is if this this app happens to be in there, we have the ability to be able to sort and filter by categories. And these are categories that are designated by the owner of that app, right? So the company that either produced that app, they will come up with those. The other thing that you're going to see, and if you haven't seen this already, is you'll see a banner. And these are the most widely used or top apps that are being displayed, and kind of gives you a clue of what's really happening inside your organization, right? Understand that the banner is only going out to a certain segment of customers in certain areas right now, right? US, UK, Canada, Ireland, Australia, New Zealand. But just make sure you understand that, you want to make sure that your operational documentation is updated with this, but it's not really changing too much more. Just it's going to be a change in your admin area for app management. All right, another change happening now inside Teams, and this is specifically for chat. Okay, so you are going to be able to set, and this is at the end user level. You have the ability to be able to have different, what I call chat density. And so you can have a compact version, or you can have the regular one, which they're calling it comfy. So comfy chat is what we normally have right now, right? It has space in between the chat threads. The compact is going to really allow you to add more and see more on that particular page, right? But it is Teams chats. Keep that in mind. It's not going to be Teams, you know, in general. It's not going to be channel experiences. It's like a group chat or individual chat. You're going to see this. So make sure you get your documentation updated. Notify your users that this is an option. And it is going to be in settings, just like you have default dark and high contrast. Now you're going to have the chat density for comfy and compact. I don't know. I might not be able to get over that word comfy when it comes to related to Teams. What we'll see. Another end user experience scenario is called pin a chat message. This is happening here mid-February to late February. And think of this as that there's that one maybe really important thing that we want to make sure that everybody has access to. And it's part of a thread, part of the thread. So I can go into that part of the thread and say pin, and that will pin it to the top, right? That chat header. And then you'll be able to click on that. It'll take me to that message, maybe, you know, days before, weeks before. And then it'll take me to that message so I can read it, do whatever I need for them. Maybe it's a process, maybe it's a document, maybe it's a link to something. The one thing that will happen is if you have retention set inside Teams, right? Say, for instance, 90 days, and that message is beyond the 90 days, by the way, that message goes. Right, so you do have to keep in mind if you do have retention set up in place. Again, notify your users of this change and documentation accordingly. Frontline workers, this is a big, huge piece to, especially the hybrid strategy and utilizing Teams in all aspects of business. This one, Walkie Talkie on iOS, it's already out. I mean, if your users have the latest and greatest, and you're thinking about doing this, it basically gives them this capability of having a walkie-talkie where they, while the phone is locked, they can press the side button. They can ask a question. It doesn't have to be available or open. You can pair this with other devices like the Blue Parrot devices to be able to that utilize that. They call it a PTT feature or press to talk feature. So you may have a button on the side of that particular device to be able to talk, or you can then, it will automatically receive that information. It is something that needs to be set up in TAC. So you do it an app setup policy. You just enable the walkie-talkie for your users if you haven't done that, especially if you're limiting the Microsoft apps that you want to push out. You would need to have that in the app setup policy, and you would do it to your, designated workers, your frontline workers, if that's the case. Some good information out there about that, but just make sure you notify your users of this change, train them appropriately how to use it, test those types of things. But that is out, and it's the latest build of iOS out of the Apple Store. I think I just answered that question, Jake. Unfortunately, it's not out for anything other than iOS at this point. All right, those were the big ones. I do want to mention some just quick hits. Some other things that I agree, Jake. I know the Android seems to be like the last thing that happens sometimes, and sometimes not always.
Wait, so is the question around being able to leverage a phone that has walkie-talkie on an Android?
I believe so. Or is that, did that come out earlier?
Yeah, that came out before Apple.
Oh, no, you're right.
Waiting
Absolutely.
about 9 months for it to come out on the Apple iOS. So I have walkie-talkie. I put an article in there that's really interesting on how Walmart purchased these Samsung devices. This is like in the summer for all their employees to use for work and for personal. But the work portion, which is interesting, is to be able to leverage a hard button on the phone for walkie-talkie.
Yeah, that
Hopefully that
press
helps you.
to talk capability. Yeah, that's awesome. They were able to do that. Oh, and somebody said they have it actually deployed in their org. That's cool. Nice. So it looks like people are starting to use it. Thank you. I did forget about the Android thing. So Jake, smiley face now.
Turn the frown upside down.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so quick mentions. Admin enhancements for Yammer admin. Just, it's going to be just a little bit of a different look and feel for opting in for this newer experience. So it's a new experience happening, being pushed out to Yammer mid-March to early April. Some admin notifications for custom app submissions. So take a look at this. I threw an AKA out there for you guys, aka.ms/pub custom app API. And basically what this allows you to do is if you have developers that are developing within teams and they want to be able to submit something, you have a way to be able to set it up so that it goes directly into a chat channel or into a Teams channel. And then you have the ability to literally approve it from that Teams channel. So making that whole process a lot faster and easier for you to be able to do things. That feature is out now. People-centric search rollout update. So this is targeted for now, for targeted release. The standard's coming in early March to mid-March. And it's a people-centric rollout. This basically allows me, if I see somebody, I can literally click on them, zoom in to get more information about what they do, who they are within the organization. Forms, big update. Right now, we can have, for form quizzes, we can have 50,000 responses. That's going to change, and I have a little typo in there. It's 5 million responses. But the thing is that in the web, so if I'm taking a look at the web version of it, I can only see the first 50,000 of those form quizzes results. If I want to see anything after that 50,000, then I have to export it out as a CSV file, and then I'll be able to see the rest of them after that. Information barriers, open and owner moderated modes. If you're not familiar with information barriers, it's the capability to be able to literally put you think of it as an internal firewall between different groups inside your organization to be able to say this group cannot talk to this group. Maybe it's a regulatory side of things that they are not able to do those types of conversations. So that's what information barriers are. We can do it in Exchange. We can do it in Teams, right? So there's new modes that are happening. Open mode is new, and that's really so after this whole feature gets rolled out. So anybody that doesn't necessarily have information barriers set up to them, it will be what's called open. Then after the fact, you can then add information barrier to a group, any new groups with information barriers called implicit. And then you have the capability of doing what's called an owner moderated, which allows the owner of a team to be able to designate who can do what within that team. So a couple different pieces that happen. And simultaneous screen share for those people who have Safari in their organizations. Mid-January to early February, so it's probably out at this point. You can do simultaneous share and participate with video in a meeting, which is something that a lot of people have been waiting for when it comes to browser-based usage. Bunch of updates, and these are date changes mostly. So I will tell you, there's a couple of them on here. The Exchange data loss prevention update, that's a big one. And that's something that basically it looks at that sender address location, and it's changing how it's managing that. The transcription to one-on-one VoIP calls, that's coming, got pushed as well. Filters on search, that's another one. If you do have people within your organization that are using Macs or are utilizing Windows on ARM, and those for the geeky people that are out there, different version of Windows, not an Intel based, but an ARM based. They have a OneDrive sync client that is coming out. It's getting pushed as well, mid-February to March for this Apple Silicon. and then early March and late April for ARM. If you remember past, we talked about automatically detecting music. Those dates changed. Connected templates, where if I want to be able to create a template in Teams that also may have some SharePoint pieces behind the scenes, that's getting pushed. It was supposed to end in February, but it's now ending in mid-March. And a couple other pieces that you may be interested in. And then the admin actions. This is huge, especially for those who still are hanging on to Windows 11, or I should say IE 11 desktop version. Make sure you get that taken care of by June 15th. But a couple new ones that came out. Tomorrow, make sure you get an update to push an update to Microsoft To Do and your Outlook clients that are on iOS or Android, making sure that they're on version 2.6 or greater, because they're changing the back-end services to be able to handle some changes. Anti-malware policy, some quarantine notification changes that are happening in there. The text message commandlet, we talked about that before, but they're updating the service. So they're going to temporarily disable this. So if you're actually utilizing that commandlet for something, just understand February 22nd, it's not going to work for a little bit until they get some things updated. Other than that, this big one, Message Center email notification changes, April 1st. So if you signed up to get that weekly Message Center digest, right, they're changing it to an opt-in type scenario as opposed to automatically doing it. So just watch for that. It's a 4-week trial. You continue to opt in. They'll let you know. It's kind of an easy process. They'll figure that out, and you'll get more information on that. Right? I think I'm done. Sorry, Michelle. A lot of content today.
No, that's all right. We'll just take it out of your time.
Oh.